You say here for Big Boomer Magic News. Okay, Dave? That's right. I did that. So, in Magic News today, we got a retcon, a nerfing of Vivi. So, there's no ban. Or maybe there'll be a ban of the Cauldron. Maybe there'll be a ban of Vivi. But the nerfing, I don't know if it fixes what people have seen as a problem with Vivi, being in so many standard decks at the pro level. But now his mana effect is a tappable effect, so therefore he can't attack in the same turn that he uses the tap effect, and also I assume in later turns, so unless you can untap him somehow. So maybe that fixes things. I don't know. I'm not an expert in pro Magic play. I play it casually mostly, so I don't know. If you think it fixes things, let me know below. If you think he still needs to get gone, let me know as well. The other big news came earlier. I don't know if I had mentioned it in a previous video. I can't remember. But I think it happened last week. And yeah, I don't think I had time to talk about it. It's the Commander update. There's some rules update, but the big one is that the multi-color cards, the ones with the slashes, meaning that if it's green-blue, then you can cast it for green or blue, or, black, red, that kind of thing. That you choose which color of mana to use instead of it being static, this color of mana, this many of this color of mana, that's so forth. Previously in Commander, if both of those colors weren't in your Commander color identity, you couldn't use them in a Commander deck. But now you can if one of them is and one of them isn't. I don't think this helps that much. I mean, I understand that the reasoning is possibly for new players because this can confuse them. But I think it actually confuses more because there's other cards that have other colors on them other than their casting cost, as in their abilities section mostly. They have other colors on them, or on the back side of the card there's a different color. And those, I mean, maybe they're going to change that too, and just make it so that you can put cards that have other colors in them as long as it's not in the casting line. Or maybe you can put cards if it's in the casting line and you have at least one of those colors, but then you have to find some way to generate that mana. And maybe if it was just like a sweeping change, which probably would really upset people, I think that it would be a little bit much. So that's probably why they're starting with this. It feels like they're starting with this and they're going to move on to other things. But I think right now it's just going to be confusing for new players. I mean, if it already was confusing, it's increased the confused atmosphere of constructing a Commander deck rather than decreased it, and rather than allow more freedom to create decks. I don't know if this whole Commander color identity thing is a balanced approach to it. I don't know whether the colors of the cards matching the Commander color identity makes it so that you can't make too powerful of a Commander deck, because, I mean, what's hindering that Commander is their ability to generate the mana. I mean, I guess if you put in the lands, but so then therefore you could put lands in that don't match your Commander's color identity, so then it would be a full sweep. But again, I don't know how much this color identity stuff is really keeping the power level in check. I mean, you can see some CEH decks. I don't think it's really restricting people. What I think is that restrictions are good in general. at least for gameplay, because it adds tension, as in you can't just do anything, so therefore you've got to become creative with what you are able to do under the restrictive circumstances. Now, of course, I guess restrictions can go too far. I mean, an extreme example would be to have zero restrictions and be able to put in any card, be able to cast any card for regardless of whether you have the mana color or the amount of mana. That would be no restrictions, and then the ultimate restriction would be you can only put one card in the deck. So I guess somewhere in the middle makes more sense, and I guess this is more rambling news than news. I think that now that Wizards of the Coast has full control of Commander, they will make decisions based on how they want to sell Commander stuff, right? Or how they may just want to put their stamp on it, or they may think that it's the restriction wasn't good, or they've had feedback to that end, but really it's because they have a different perspective than the Commander Rules Committee did. And maybe, I can't remember whether there were Commander Rules Committee people that had said that they were involved in this discussion, but they're not in control anymore, so it doesn't really matter if they're involved. And really, if they were a rubber stamp before, even though they were removed from Wizards because they didn't want to have the hammer come down on them from Wizards, then they're even more of a rubber stamp now because they have no ability to do anything or really do any sort of pushback. So I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just not for it. I don't see the point. It needlessly muddles the water, and I don't see what good it does. But if you can see some benefit to this, let me know in the comments below. And obviously, if you have a problem with it, you're probably already going to let me know in the comments below. And let me know what you think of the VV nerfing, and what you think about all of this. And I think that's the big Magic news. I mean, there was also I'll probably make a separate video at some point on the Q3 results, but I did see that Q3 revenue was $459 million. And the last time I heard of yearly numbers, it was under $1 billion, and it was closer to $750 million for yearly results. But $459 million for one quarter is an extreme amount, meaning that they're probably easily going to crest $1 billion this year, if that number is true, if what I read is true. But that, I mean, it means that, already probably this year, they've probably already made $1 billion in revenue, not in profit, just in revenue. But still, it was only 4 or 5 years ago that Hasbro stated that Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering was their first $1 billion brand. And it's interesting that it's not Transformers or G.I. Joe or Furbies or Play-Doh or any of the other number of big IPs that you think of when you think of Hasbro. And it's certainly not Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons doesn't generate enough revenue. We heard that from the CEO, but I mean, it's true. It's not actually a big revenue generator. It may be profitable, but it's not a huge revenue generator. And of course, the board games could be collectively enough revenue, but not to the tune of $459 million in a quarter, let alone even a year. Probably over a decade, maybe board games would make that much. And the toy division is famously unprofitable and has been since the pandemic, or possibly before, or at least parts of it have, and Wizards is kind of propping that up. But it's interesting that we're now at $459 million for one quarter, and of course, that's the quarter in which Final Fantasy appears, and Edge of Eternities, and Spider-Man. I don't think it counts Tarkir. I think that's Q2. Spider-Man, while prices are dropping on the collector boxes, is, there's still a sell-through rate on it. Not to the rate that it was before, but certainly the sell-through rate increased as it dropped from $1,000 down to $550, but I think it's slowed down now that it's hit $450, just because we're at catching a falling knife territory. Of course, Rudy is buying a ton of Magic Spider-Man collector boxes, and he's at apparently 2,000. That's what I saw in a video of his last night. And, you know, is this another Lord of the Rings special holiday edition for him? Because I don't think that the Final Fantasy special holiday edition is going to perform the way that the Lord of the Rings special holiday edition did. In fact, I think it's going to be the inverse. That's just my gut reaction. Anyway, this Q3 result means that, obviously, everyone knows, Final Fantasy created a ton of revenue for Wizards of the Coast. And Edge of Eternities probably did too. They may have underprinted it, thinking that it wasn't going to do as well, but I don't see why they would necessarily underprint it, because, you know, Bloomborough did well in the same space. They came out roughly the same time in the summer, although Assassin's Creed also came around that time in the summer as well. So maybe they were hedging their bets between Assassin's Creed and Bloomborough, and maybe they weren't that confident in Edge of Eternities, and maybe they needed way more printer space for Final Fantasy and knew that. So it's possible that it was underprinted, but the point is that it flew off the shelves, just like Tarkir flew off the shelves and Final Fantasy flew off the shelves. And the only thing that hasn't flown off the shelves is Spider-Man. And I don't know, from what I can tell, I mean, Spider-Man's performing better than Karlov Manor or, well, pretty much any January set, like Karlov Manor, Innistrad Remastered, Kaldheim. What happened in January after the Crimson Dominary Remastered. Any of the remastered sets, really, except for Time Spiral Remastered. So Spider-Man's doing better than I'd say all of the worst sets from 2020 till now. I'm guessing if you were to take all the worst sets and include Spider-Man in that, it would be at the top of the heap, and it may be above some of the mediocre sets. In any case, these Q3 results are pretty huge, and the VV thing is pretty huge, and the Commander thing is, I'm going to call it annoying rather than huge. Feel free to ignore any new Commander rules. I've said that. I have this video, the King of Magic declares, way back when the Rules Committee made dumb decisions, and now Wizards of the Coast will make dumb decisions too, but it's fine. You play the game however you want to play. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a good day.